Take one.
You're watching the QUESTionaire podcast.
What can they say?
You are checking out the QUESTionaire.
What's your name again?
The QUESTionaire.
Would you like to have questions?
I don't got it. I'm not that guy.
Submit yourself.
Super fun and entertaining.
This is the QUESTionaire.
For the past week or so. What you talking about? We like it like, I don't know, I feel like we're getting close to 20 over here on season 3. Something, man. At a certain point, I'll stop acknowledging that whatsoever because I, the unknown factor, will truly just lose track of where we are. And it might be because I'm tired. It might be because we just do a lot over here, man, with the team that we got that's doing everything. The website's popping off right now. It is phenomenal, right? So welcome, with that in mind, to the QUESTionaire. And, you know, it's been a bit of a wildfire life, this show, but it burns in the best of ways, right? And if you've been checking out the Pan-Con that we did very recently, it was stacked. And this gentleman right here caused Ross Ritchie name envy, and I love it. Memphis, Quin McGowan, how you been, man?
I've been good. How about yourself?
Man, we was talking before the show. Come on, we ain't getting into my life.
Life is lifing. That's perfectly fine.
I can't tell you how many times I was like, man, life be lifing, but like, it's the whole thing. Life is hard and it ain't never going to get easier. It's the ability to adapt, move forward, and keep going. You know what I mean? And that's something I've seen you do a great deal of, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it's funny because you were on season 2. Yeah, you were on season 2.
Yes, I was.
That's terrible. I literally have to think about it at this point because, like, but no, there's like close to 100 episodes in each, like season 1 and season 2.
Congratulations.
And yeah, thank you, man. Yeah, it's been an absolute joy. It really has. And sometimes, like, I remember and forget, and then remember and forget, and it's funny, because I remember the conversation we had wrestling, man, because we got like deep. It went into Mid-South. It got Eddie Kaufman.
Yes.
It got like that was look. If y'all are into wrestling, go check out the first time Memphis was on.
Yes.
It got deep. Like,
yeah, we
and
touched on some things.
Yeah. You know, when you're talking Mid-South, man, like, you're talking to somebody that knows wrestling when they're talking, especially at this point, right?
Right.
But I didn't, and I don't know how this glossed over my head that I'd forgotten that you as well do hip hop. And it's funny.
Yes, I do.
Because we had Adam Walenta on, who goes by Illis. And he also does hip hop. And I was giving him crap about the fact that it was like, man, I said I would never interview another hip hop artist. Because I ran online radio for 3 years, man. For 3 years. I dealt with a lot of people, a lot of Juggalo rappers, and I don't know if you know anything about
Oh, wow. Yeah. I'm aware.
The oh wow says it all.
Yeah,
Quinn, it says it all. And it shows that you are aware. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
they are as mysterious as magnets.
What? So in other words, if you analyze it, they're really easy to figure out what pushes and pulls them. Is that what you're saying?
Or how the fuck does that work?
I don't know that. Look, man, how many Juggalo rappers have you dealt with?
There was a venue back in the day in Memphis called the Rally Point, so a fair amount of them. Yeah, I've seen a few in my time.
Like that would now, when I say Juggalo rappers, like, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah,
guys that wanted to.
I've seen more than a Fago 6-pack of them. I'm aware.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Because I mean, I'm from Indiana, and I played a venue real close to Michigan, and there's a lot of them. And
there's a pretty direct line between Memphis and the greater, the Great Lakes states. So that interplay, like, trust me, I've seen quite a few of them. More hatchet men than I would like to count, I used to be a tattoo artist. I've done more Hatchet Man tattoos than I'd like to count. But, you know.
You got any stories, Memphis?
Not that I want to tell.
Oh.
Juggalos buy comics too.
I mean, that's true, but I don't think. Okay, look, I'm gonna be real mean. Juggalos buy and read comics. I don't think Juggalo rappers, for the most part, read at all.
So that's the thing, right? Most of the Juggalo rappers I encountered, we never got as far as actually doing a show together. They're like, I'm a person who doesn't do well with having my limits tested. I also don't do well with, I'm not a dominant culture guy, right? I'm not the guy, I'm not from the part of the hood where proximity to another Black person gives you access to saying certain things. And my experience with Juggalo rappers had been such that there is a fascination with using certain words or language, and crossing that barrier will get you, if we want to go back to Mid-South references, it will get you a really Eddie Gilbert response. Trying to be polite in my management.
No,
of
it's
this.
okay, man, because I'm pretty positive there's one specific word you're referring to, and I knew.
Yeah, I know you know what word. I'm just trying to be
well, no, because I had it.
egalitarian in how I'm addressing how I would respond to someone using that word in my presence.
Yeah, man. Look, I had a dude that was trying to help me run the radio I run, and like he kept, and I was like, dude, you say it one more time, I'm gonna smack you in the face. And he didn't take me seriously.
Yeah.
So, and when that happened, he was very shocked.
Yes.
And
yeah, people find out late that my middle name is Consequences, and so yeah, I come from a place in time where what's the best way to kind of put it, right? It's like a your mom joke. Maybe you and your friend can get together and he could ask where you been and you could say, oh, I just got off the top of your mom. And he might accept that that is okay to do. But if you go with him to his family reunion, his mom is someone's favorite aunt. And just because he gave you permission doesn't mean that her favorite nephew won't stomp your teeth out by the Baccarat court.
I can tell you've dealt with Juggalo rappers, Quinn.
Yeah. They thought hatchets were their ally. They merely adopted the weapons. I was born with them.
Oh, man.
See, this episode didn't even start off like you thought it was, did it?
That's no, because it's a look. I'm not gonna lie, man. When I was a kid, I got into ICP and all that, and it was young, and I started doing hip hop when I was 32. I also have read my whole life, like avidly. I'm also really good at patterns, right?
Right.
So between the fact that I read a lot and I was really good at patterns, quickly people were like, "Oh, well, let me take you under your wing. You know, you're dope, man. I'm gonna go record you, blah blah blah." And then they quickly realized, because none of them read at all, and apparently they weren't that good at patterns. I made a lot of people in Indiana mad until I finally ran into my brother DKB, who, as a lyricist, is beyond me. I'm beyond him as a storyteller. When we got together, we sharpened one another's swords respectively on both of those things. You know, everyone else ended up having a problem with me in a real quick manner, because I don't know, man. I don't rightly care, but it was. Look, This is why this is, look, this right here, the questionnaire, right? I'm gonna rename it the Adult Reading Rainbow. Everybody go out there and read. There's a comic book for everyone, and I think that's something that a lot of people
Absolutely.
they don't understand. You know,
Absolutely.
I mean, because you've got
There's just thinking about how, I think I said the other week that, I'm old enough to where my introduction to comics was not the LCS. It was the 7-Eleven. It was the spinner rack. And there is literally a universe for everybody to grab hold to. That's one of the beautiful things about comics. It's what's been really intriguing about some of the projects that I've been working on recently is the opportunity to explore the storytelling model, right? Like I don't want to place myself above my pay grade, but I find myself at this stage of what I'm doing creatively, thinking about the Grant Morrison of it all, right? Like kind of expecting not just the stories themselves, but the way that we tell and value those stories. And so I've really been locking in more to how people fall in love with comics, what their first contact with it is, finding ways to mythologize those instances, because that's something that I find really fascinating. So yes, there are comics for everybody, and we should encourage people to read, but I think people are coming back around to that because we're entering a moment that feels like it's hearkening a return to things like physical media, a more intimate entertainment experience where people want to hold things and have them to keep for themselves. They don't want a streaming service to tell them, well, yeah, I know you bought this album for $9.99 or $12.99, but it's not here anymore, kind of thing, right? Like nobody wants somebody, to make another comic reference, right? Like of the old days of collecting. Nobody wants mom coming in their room and throwing away all their books for the paper drive, right? Which is what created the value in the first comic books to begin with. So I think people are returning to enjoying the value of physically tangible entertainments. So reading might be coming back in style.
I would love to see that, because I think in doing that, it takes away a certain amount of control that the corporations have been allotted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that also the past 25, 30 years have been kind of a shift into a model that is largely driven off consumption, right? And as a corporation, if I can cut quality out of the equation, right? If you can be entertained by AI of Will Smith eating spaghetti, right? Even though that's not fully functioning, if I can get away with charging you for that, and you're really logging your consumption through hours and time as opposed to quality, then I can feed you hot dog sludge, right? But if people are still responding to the Kendrick Lamars or the SZAs or the, well, not SZA, but Dolce, not to not scissor her, but like I was thinking of Dolce. But if people are still falling in love with craftsmanship, with people who take time to make the things that they make, right? Then that disrupts that model. Because if it's just stuff, and you're just eating stuff, then it lessens the ratio of you taking the time to inspect what you're ingesting, right? But you're never going to be able to replace somebody taking some time and really thinking about the thing that they made and putting intent behind it, because it's something you can feel, and you can't manufacture that. So at the risk of sounding like a Star Wars character, there is still hope.
All right, real quick, for everyone out
Mm-hmm.
there is still hope. And I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to check out a word from our sponsor. Hopefully you can check them out and get a little bit off your comics right now. Studio Comics.
We need to restart this whole commercial because people could probably hear Pokemon in the background. Please check out this amazing promotion that we have prepared with the questionnaire. I'm the unknown factor. This right here is the obscure fragment. are watching this show. Yeah, I'll do editing with the questionnaire. So we've edited this awesome commercial together, y'all.
90% off.
We are not giving 90% off.
No, I mean 9.
How about 20? The only thing that you have to do is enter that code that you have right there.
9.
No, 20.
10.
How about 20? I'm printing your comics today with Studio Comics Press. Just use this code right here, right here, right here. Look, I put it somewhere. All right, it's probably actually right here, right here, right. It's right under your chin. It says Quest24. That code you gotta enter in our website, and then you will get a whipping discount of 20% in any of the items or products that we have on the website.
9.
20.
9.
20%.
9.
All right.
9.
He wants to give you 9% off. I, as well as Alfonso over there on Studio Comics, want to give you 20% off. You can get it right there with this amazing code. Just enter it right here. Yeah, just right there. There. Use that code over at Studio Comics to get 20% off. Thank you very much. This is a special one for all our friends of the questionnaire. Type in Quest24 when you check out, man. You can figure out the percentage you'll get right then because it'll show in your order.
Yeah,
right?
9% off.
It's 20%. The Questionnaire, the best current comic book podcast existing around. So happy to have Studio Comics as our very, very first sponsor. Say Studio Comics!
Studio Comics!
Don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and do all the stuff that you have to do. I'm the Unknown Factor with the Questionnaire. Make sure you check it out.
Yeah, check it out, man. You can get 20% off Quest24. Just go to studiocomics.com. You seen it? It's right there. My boy was trying to make it way more than it was. My boy was ridiculous in that commercial, Quinn. He's like 50, 100. I'm like, you're trying to get Alfonso to give comics away for free. But it's like 20's enough, buddy. It was bloody well ridiculous, I swear. But when we were talking before the show, oh man, you said it so quick, and I might be way too tired. I might need a bump. I'm not gonna need a bump. I don't need a bump. That kind of stuff.
Please don't need a bump.
Yeah, I'm wired. Look, I'm wired enough. I don't need it, man. I mean, I'm tired, but I ain't so tired when I'm gonna go Scarface on it. All right. But you said something about explain the hip hop graphic novel. What? Just throw that at me.
Oh, okay. So
yeah.
With the good folks down at Rexco Comics and the homeboy Troy Jeffrey Allen, there is an anthology series that's going to be getting into the hands of Kickstarter recipients around second quarter of 26. It's called Afro Futures, and in that is my 5-page introduction to a story called The Children of the Elements. And Children of the Elements is my deep breath, post-apocalyptic hip-hop high fantasy graphic album. It is a world in which hip-hop has become not only a dominant culture, but let's think of it like Kung Fu, right? In Kung Fu, you have Chi. Well, in the world of Children of the Elements, you have flow. And once you connect to your flow, which is syncing your heartbeat to the internal sounds in your body and creating a beat internally, that rhythm that you operate off of lets you run faster, jump higher, et cetera, et cetera. And so this takes place almost 1,000 years in the future in which you and I are talking. And hip hop has become a world dominant force and now fallen. So now hip hop is kind of a thing that's silently whispered, almost like the dead rabbits. There are characters that live underground, and it is a story about mythology in a post-America world, but I also refer to it as a post-hauntology hip-hop chronology, because it is also the story of what do people who pick up the pieces in the post-apocalypse do? What does it look like beyond the post-apocalypse? Like, I'm so tired of watching people in football shoulder pads fight over gasoline, which would technically be rendered useless in a decade or two. And without people actually refining the oil, gasoline would be rendered useless within a couple of decades. But who am I to nitpick the great George Ramirez?
You have intrigued my brain on so many things with what you just said.
I enjoy doing that to people.
Yeah, there are so many levels as far as like the flow, giving them powers and the alignment.
Oh yeah. I didn't even mention that we don't have dragons in this fantasy because everybody rides giant pit bulls. But please go on.
All right, don't make me digress. I do it enough by myself, Quinn. All right, sheesh. Where did you come up?
I'll send you some images with it.
Where did you come up with the idea of the flow of that? Like that's a very original concept for gaining superpowers, man. And I have read a lot of comics about different people gaining superpowers different ways. I don't. That's to do it where it's referencing hip hop so hard like that. That's dope, man. I need to like explain yourself, Quinn.
So I'm a guy who, when I make things, the thing that I like about manga is that simplicity is the form of it, right? Because it's about working very directly on your craft. But I am a child of American comics, so it's always going to come through that filter. And so what I mean by that is when you strip away the parts, everything is always really simple. I come from hip hop culture. Hip hop culture is directly tied to things, and we talked about this before. It's tied to wrestling. It's tied to kung fu, right? The parallels of what gives you the Wu-Tang Clan is being part of hip hop culture and watching kung fu theater. Either if you lived in places like New York or Philly, you could go to theaters on the weekend back in the day. And if you lived where I lived in Memphis, it would come on cable on Sunday afternoons. So the idea of hierarchical form, hip hop, kung fu, right? Various styles, hip hop, kung fu. So those rivers flow right next to each other. And the only thing that I added to it, in my opinion, was the evolutionary element. That on a long enough timeline in hip hop culture, right, everything was on the four at first: a hip hop, a hippie, a hippie, a hippie to the hippie, and now, 20 years removed from that, it's bump stickety bum hump. I got the dump a rumpa pump pump. So there's a speed up. You get Busta Rhymes after that, right? You get Mystical. So there is an evolutionary chain to things like the speed and cadence and how much you can pack into a punchline. So there's an evolutionary growth. So eventually, if you have battle rap operates off the principles of psychological warfare and being able to kind of demoralize your opponent, then at some point I would be able to battle rap and say that my style is spastic. My flow's fantastic. It could suffocate you like you were wrapped up in plastic. And if my opponent is a weaker rapper than me and my power in the flow is stronger, he's going to start to asphyxiate. And in an arena setting where the crowd is siding with the winner, then the energy of the crowd then also intimidates and crushes. And even if you look at like the Kendrick Lamar Drake battle, right? You're talking about strategy to the point where 4 songs into the battle, Kendrick says, don't tell no lies about me and I won't tell the truth about you. And there's this layering and the unfolding of elements of, okay, I told you, I warned you on this song. Now 2 songs later, I'm hitting you with the truth. That's the precursor to that. So all I did was apply the Ken Burns filter to modern hip hop, right? And I started to look at it historically. The other element that I added to it is I come from the South and I grew up in the Church of God in Christ, like in my youth. That was the religion that I was exposed to. So I've always been fascinated with religiosity, right? There's a funny thing that happens over time, right? Like history is like the telephone game. And so 500 or 700 years ago, if we parted ways, I wouldn't say peace or goodbye or bye. I would say, God be with you as you go into the wilderness or whatever. That's what goodbye is. And it gets contracted over time. The other thing that happens is history tends to blow things out of proportion. So Moses and the Hebrews with whom were masons and builders who were contracted by the Egyptians, but they were also militarily minded. So they were strategically placed in North Egypt to work on the pyramids because the enemy of my enemy is my enemy, right? That was a contract dispute. And the guys picked up their tools and they left. And the Pharaoh sent some people after them. And they crossed a tributary to the Sea of Reeds at low tide. And if the Egyptians are a day and a half behind you, by the time you get to where they crossed, it's high tide. So you send a couple of men across to see if they can breach that tributary. And maybe 2 guys and a horse die. 1,000, 2,000 years later, you got Charlton Heston holding up a stick, and the entire sea is split in 2, and the 2 fish are on either side, looking like they're in an aquarium. So I made it to where the view of the people in my story, the first people of hip hop, the MC Lights, the Big Daddy Kanes, the LL Cool J's, these are deities whose words and deeds are taken literally as though they are from the Bible. People in my story believe that LL Cool J can turn into a shark. They call me Jaws. My head is like a shark's fin.
That's so MC Hammer cannot be touched.
No, he is intangible physically and still exists in the spirit realm. But wait, it gets worse. I have a side story about Fetty Wap where characters have to find a ruby and find a statue of him and put the ruby in his eye to open the door. I am an insane person. So I just took all of what I knew about hip hop and I mythologized it in the minds of my characters so that part of the belief that they operate on is really a hyper realized self-confidence, which again is in hip hop.
Now, no, wait.
Crazy person.
So, hey man, look, don't be afraid to scare the normies. All right, that's my new thing. And shout out to Rebecca Lee Gardner, man, who we had on. I mean, you can check out her quest. It's just a few back, but she was telling a story about because she writes books for 3rd to 6th graders, and she was a kid asked her how do you do that, and she just started doing it.
Yes,
it's what she does.
Absolutely.
And she looks and she's like, I realized everybody she was like, oh, I scared the normies. And it made me be like, yeah, no, don't be afraid to scare the normies.
Because if you scare them, you might actually scare them into action, right? Because a lot of times being scared is just, oh my God, I don't know what this is. I've never encountered it before. And you might actually, scare them into inspiration. So yeah, please don't be scared to scare the normies because you might scare them into the next great thing. That's good.
I'm about to make that a quote for the show. Don't be afraid to scare the normies. I'm gonna have Shiro make a graphic and everything. It's gonna be terrible, right? But
good
so
times.
with that, you've got a 5-issue story or a 5-issue story within
5-page story inside Afrofuture.
I was gonna say a 5-issue story inside of an anthology. I want to point out those are the words that were about to come out of my mouth, which doesn't make sense.
Well, if the comic book was made in quantum uncertainty, then yeah, it would actually.
Look, man, stop. I'm tired. All right, you got a 5-page story coming out in the anthology. I feel like this, with what you just described. How far have you plotted that out?
I've been planning this all week, son. I just like Training Day a lot. I've got it figured out pretty far.
Now I need to watch that again. It's been a while.
Yeah. It's the scene where he's on the couch at the Sandman's house.
Yeah. No, I remember. It's been a while, but that's a solid one, right? So,
so it's so originally a member of the hip hop group that I'm in, we actually came up with this thing initially, and over time it just it ballooned, and the more I got into comics and the more confidence I developed, the broader I made the story. Like I think the story was pretty simple when we first started it. And to be fair, I love my life because in my hip hop group, I'm not even the only person in my hip hop group that's in the comics, right? The MC that's from my group that I started on this project with has already written 2 Black Panther stories for Marvel. So it's a weird fun time. But yeah, like that all kind of ballooned out of what we did when we initially started what eventually became Children of the Elements. Initially, we were calling it Son of the Iron Mike. Now, for me, that's kind of the name of the first chapter. The overall story is Children of the Elements, and elements, right? There are 4 of them, at least. And we start with those initial 4, right? Which are b-boying and b-girling, DJing, MC, and graffiti. And those become kind of the 4 linchpins, almost on the 4 points like Gangs of New York type of thing, where each one of those houses then functions a very different way. One of my collaborators, Hannibal Taboo, really made things simpler. Yeah, shout out to him. He was also on the quest.
Yeah. Shout out to Hannibal. And I swear, look, we're gonna get that game of the Sundering running again. It's my life has really been life, and as me and Quinn were talking about beforehand. But we're gonna get that because the last episode on the show where it was the Sundering, I got about as close to death as I did in that game as I did a real emotional death in life, and we'll just leave it at that. I got real.
Oh yeah.
I got
well,
real
as
close
Hannibal
to
would
death.
say, we are who we are. So, but yeah, so like he speaking of Sundering, used that kind of game dynamic of a bard, right, a wizard, or those different positions, and that really helped break things down. And because Hannibal is always fastidious, I have a timeline that spans the better part of 1,000 years, several wars, hierarchical changes. There is no America because America was canceled like a TV show because the media is now sovereign and it runs what used to be the United States. I love burying the lead.
I'm depressed now.
I was not trying to evoke Netflix.
Like, yeah. Do you want to talk about the fact that they're about to buy Warner Brothers and HBO?
Yeah, the thing that I found more curious than people being upset about that, which I can see the upset, I can understand it. I found it as curious as the lack of upset at the potential that Paramount Skydance was going to buy it, right? Because Larry Ellison is, him and the current administration are like this, and I'm already very concerned for the fate of Star Trek. So yeah.
I don't. You ever think? I feel like sometimes people do not realize the warnings that have been put forth artistically, whether it's a story or a song.
Oh no.
How do you watch The Matrix and not go, AI is a bad idea?
What's that tweet where the tweet says, author, I wrote the torment nexus as a cautionary tale. Scientists, we finally created the torment nexus from the book Don't Create the Torment Nexus, right? That has always kind of been the thing that society does.
So it's the scientist's fault. Is that what we're saying?
No. Right? Like it is stupid, greedy people's fault every single time, right? Scientists, if anything, sometimes can be a little naive because they think that the scientific method upon which they do their science is the way that they function as people, and that they as human beings are as free of bias as the scientific method that they use, which is a silly thing. and a very unscientific way to look at themselves as human beings. So I think that gets caught up in stuff, because when you believe in certain societal norms, sure, you could build something that functions as AI, but it's going to have the same biases that create the same problems. So it's like, I don't need a housing discrimination robot, right? I'm already getting my housing discrimination from human beings. I don't need that outsourced for me. So that idea that science is pure because it makes things is a naive thing, and it denies the mirroring that happens between scientist and artist. I know as an artist that I am functioning through bias. I have a process. That process is in of itself scientific. I do discovery, I do research, I do sketches, I write things, I do redrafts, right? I don't just jump out there with the first thing that I have, the same way that a scientist inspects things and works through it. But I don't ignore that I have bias. I don't ignore that I'm coming from a perspective. And I think that belief that science either is or isn't is the reason why science is in such jeopardy now, right? Because there are lots of people who did not pay attention in high school who believe that science is an absolute and not a method of observation.
Yeah.
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 I yeah. Yeah.
It's a nightmare in here, man, because it's like I'm just at the grocery store standing around people who are like, oh, I'm just tra-la-lying through life. And it's like, oh, yeah, everything's on fire. But yeah, gotta buy cookies when you gotta buy cookies, right?
Look, Quinn, man, the last time you were on, it was way more cheerful. Stop being depressing, damn it.
Oh, it is the holiday season.
For real, like, Merry Christmas. Like, but you're making it a nightmare. Apparently, I picked the appropriate cup.
See, I'm trying to stay within the theme. Black Skellington strikes again.
I'm too tired for this shit. I'm not too old. I'm not too old, but I'm definitely too tired, Quinn. All right.
Black Skellington and Manny Glover, ladies and gentlemen. So everybody's best Lethal Weapon sequel ever.
Oh, that I'd watch that. Yeah,
I'd watch it.
I'd totally. I'd be like, what? No, is it claymation? It must be claymation.
Rankin Bass presents Lethal Weapon.
Yeah,
is great.
That. Oh God. So you've got a 5-pager planned. That's going to start in the second quarter of next year.
Yeah, well, it's actually going to be delivered. We did a Kickstarter for it. It was successful, thank goodness.
Oh.
So we're going to be delivering the books to the people, and it will become widely available. But yes, that's going to be second quarter, 5 pages, Afrofuture, Rexco Comics. Again, shout out to Troy Jeffrey Allen.
Are you planning on continuing that story from those 5 pages? Because
yes.
So with that, are you planning on continuing it within its own issues, or is there another anthology planned?
So yeah, it's actually gonna branch off and become its own book. The way that I intend to ultimately deliver the fully realized issues, they will be in the shape of record covers, and so each one the books will be embedded inside it'll come with 2 vinyls, right? One will be a score, one will be a soundtrack. And there'll be actual hip hop artists from various states in the game. Some are well known, some are local and you've never heard of before. And the beauty of what we're doing is because it takes place a full 1,000 years in the future, everyone who is in the project could potentially be the next greatest MC, right? Like 1,000 years is a long time to kind of settle everybody's legacy. So, the other thing that we wanted to do was tell a story where even if a toddler whose favorite MC is MC mumble rap, right? Like, doesn't matter whether or not I like that particular genre, right? When they open those first 5 pages, even they will say, what the heck is this? This doesn't look like any hip hop that I know, which is what everybody in the past looks like, right? Every time an old head comes up complaining, that's what we look like. And so when you set the story several hundred years in the future, everybody reading the book is an old head. And so it puts us all in the same boat.
That was a smart move, Quinn. That was a very, very smart move, man. Because I know from everything I dealt with running the radio, I mean, being part of the 144 and a number of other things, man, like I've seen those things. And at the same time, like, look, if somebody starts playing mumble rap for me, I'm going to walk away. I'm just.
Right. I've come to find that I've enjoyed hip hop much more once I began to look at hip hop the way that one looks at kung fu. You might love Tiger Style, but have you ever turned off a kung fu movie because the guy had monkey style or the guy had snake style? See, when you appreciate a thing as a style, it might not work for you, but you could appreciate that it works, that it has a function, that it has a place. And I think that's another important element to addressing hip hop, is to make sure that you remember to address it as community. So even to the point of where we started with Juggalo rappers, right? Not my taste, doesn't fit into what I do. I don't get to deny that it is within the umbrella of either hip hop or rap, right? Now, for me, I am very declarative on the differences because rap is a vocation, hip hop is a culture, right? In a vocation, you can embody a lot of things that come from culture, right? But it doesn't necessarily give you full access to culture, and it doesn't make you part of culture. How you carry yourself and interact with the rest of culture determines that, right? So I try to look at things in terms of, okay, this is a style that doesn't necessarily speak to me, but I don't want to cut it off because everything had like when you look at anytime you look at any origin story, there's the potential to find something there that is eye-opening, right? So I try not to cut that part of myself off. And that was part of why I really started to embrace this project at a deeper level, because I think I can admit that when we first were doing it, I was thinking of it in terms of backpack rappers versus the bad guys, right? The people that are just in it for the capitalism, and that's a bad oversimplification of it. And that's when I started to think about the elements of religion, right? You have a set of religious events that take place, and then across the developing world, you end up with the Reformation and you have the Crusades. You have all of these very human arguments about the execution of something that is kind of globally understood. And I think that happens a lot in hip hop, right? That you have kind of here, it's the CNN of the streets. It's a way for community to communicate and to extend itself to other communities. And there are often arguments about how that could be best executed. And that became the story for me, right? How cultures build on things and those things expand out. So like there are a lot of influential elements that I was pulling from with it, but it's always really telling a story about hip hop and using hip hop in all of the ways, right? Like there are a lot of one of the things that it didn't happen on the way to print, but one of the hard rules that we've developed for the story is there will be lots of times where characters in the story quote the lines of great MCs the way that old people quote the Bible. And so whenever a line from an MC is being quoted, it's in red like the words of Christ, right? So finding ways to add all of those influences into what we're doing is key to it, because that's a key in all of my work. Like with Project Wildfire, design wise, he looks like a Superman archetype. He's got a cape, he's got a letter on the front of his chest. But if you look deeper, like at things like his color scheme, I'm actually more pulling from Ultraman, right? I'm actually waiting on my comps to get here. I had the good fortune to do a pinup for the 55th anniversary of the Subaraya Ultraman series. Thanks to shout out to Robert Roach who brought me in on that project. And so I got to do an Ultra 7 pinup. So I'm waiting on my comps to get back. But like when we created Wildfire, if you go back to my Kickstarter or any of my media talking about it, Wildfire's alter ego is named after my grandfather, with whom I spent countless weekends with. We watched wrestling together. We watched the George Reeves Superman together, and we watched Ultraman together. And so, you know, Ultraman thematically is about so much more than just that toku style of Japanese entertainment, right? Like, it is cool that you have guys in suits fighting guys in monster suits, but the theme of what Ultraman is really talking about is rooted a lot in the empathy for the kaiju, right? Whose only crime is really being too big for the world that they exist in. So I'm always trying to pull from those things, because to me, that cultural exchange of hip hop, kung fu, of comics, and the popularity of, you know, manga, which I tend to chuckle when people get really bound up in it. That's why manga's kicking comics butt. What is the English translation of the word manga? Just out of curiosity, right?
I mean,
Like,
yeah,
so
it's comic. I mean, yeah, which is, and I
yeah,
would
and
think
so
the only thing that I'll tell you, the only thing that ever really like drove me crazy about manga, and the reason that I probably haven't read way more of it than I have, is look, man, I read comics my whole life, and my brain, when I try to read a manga, screws up reading it so much that, yeah, because I'm not going the right way. You know what I mean? Because it's backwards, which that's fine. I appreciate it as an art form. I'm glad it exists. I'm glad there are people reading it. But my brain is just like, I keep on jumping to a point I shouldn't have, to the point where I'm like, I'm ruining this story. I don't want to read it anymore.
you know, again, I am thankful that comics was such an early part of my life. Like, another, you know, like I have all these great memories. Like, my grandfather's name is Will Watson. My grandmother's name is Willie Watson. And, you know, she used comics to practice her reading. And so I read Batman comics with my grandma, and I watched George Reeves Superman with my grandpa. So yeah, my memories are rooted in engaging comics very much as a child. And it's weird, like so my engagement with comics ruined Watchmen the same way that me watching Unbreakable before I saw The Sixth Sense ruined Shyamalan movies for me, because I saw Unbreakable first. And so as soon as like the guy comes into the room, spoilers for a movie that's been out for 2 decades, as soon as the guy comes in the room, I'm like, oh yeah, that dude's dead. He's out of here. And it was the same thing with Watchmen, because as a kid, you can pick up a comic book and kids just look at pictures, right? So I'm in the middle of the book, at the end of the book, I'm starting to learn how to read. So now I'm reading my favorite pages first, and then now I'm reading the thing as a whole, right? So when I started engaging with Watchmen, I was like, oh, Dr. Manhattan is a metaphor for people reading comic books. And everybody was like, what do you mean? I was like, you can skip to the end. You can know everything that's in the book. You can know what's going to happen later in the book, but you can't change the ending. That is the entirety of what Dr. Manhattan's power set is. He's a comic book reader. He has omniscience in regards to what is going on, who's at play, who's at fault, who's the bad guy. He can't be destroyed. He can't be removed because he's the reader. He can just choose to put the book down, but he can't change the outcome. If the Joker shoots Barbara Gordon and she's paralyzed from now on, that's just what it is. You could flip through that book 1,000 times. You can't beat Alan Moore. You can't make that book be something else.
Now I'm just going to start an argument because I want to, right?
Let's fight.
Right.
Especially, I'm fresh off of Alan Moore, so shout out
God,
to
dude,
North
calm
Compton.
down, Quinn. Jesus,
Never.
man, I'm not trying to take this to the days of when I ran the radio, because I'm telling you, there was some
villainous days.
I dealt with some people that like to consider themselves edgelords. I did not give myself the name The Unknown Factor. It was a lyric that I wrote, and then someone that knew me fairly well went, "That's your name," and I became annoyed at how correct they were and how much it fits me. So, while I don't like the edgelord thing, if we want to play that game, that's fine. That's not the kind of argument I'm talking about, though, man. Calm the hell down, Quinn. Right? Who's your favorite member of the Wu-Tang Clan?
Okay. So this is a tough thing.
I don't care, bro. I love the reaction if nothing else. You're like that
yeah,
was
because there's a weird thing where like I have a lot of commonality that creates a bit of a bias. So when I was younger, I was often tagged for looking like Inspector Deck, right? And I do appreciate his approach to emceeing, but my favorite member of the Wu-Tang Clan is probably Method Man. Like there is a pain to having all of the tools, right? Like Method Man is like the Jamie Lannister of the Wu-Tang Clan. Like he's got all the gifts, and even when he appeared compromised, right, which was really, I don't know, that felt like internal. Like, have you seen the show? You seen that hip hop documentary, The Show?
man. I need to, dude. Look, I'll be real honest, Quinn. In the past, like, wait, how long ago did that come out?
Oh God, the show was out 15, 20 years ago. It's a very old movie.
Well, maybe I have.
Dude, like they were in their infancy. Like this was back when Jay-Z, like it was during the tour where Jay-Z had like Wu-Tang and DMX and all of that. But there's a moment where the Wu-Tang is on the bus together, and I don't think Method Man is doing How High with Redman quite yet, but he is dabbling in film, and he is very obviously the darling of the Wu-Tang Clan, right? Like he's the most gregarious. He kind of, like he's the girls think he's cute. Like he's got all the gifts, and you can tell that the rest of the clan do not like it, right? It's palpable that they felt a way about it, and I always felt for Meth, and then it was like he was very clear about his love for comics. I can't confirm for sure, but I remember telltale being that he was left-handed. So like Method Man and Todd McFarlane are my guys because that's the left-handed lisp club, right? Like I have a lisp that I have to work through, and I'm left-handed. So yeah, and so yeah, Method Man. I'm gonna say Method Man. I respect the deck, but Method Man's my guy.
You didn't start an argument because I agree with you. I love Meth, man. I love Method Man. I have I had those albums when I was young, you know what I mean? And I mean I had other Wu-Tang stuff too, but I always like Meth's solo stuff, man. And then he went on to do the films that he did, But you gotta you got to give RZA respect coming back like Iron Fist. Like I love that. Like taking it to that whole kung fu level, man. But yeah, I was.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Whatever. I was trying to start an argument, and I have to
Well,
because I'm not gonna just disagree just to disagree when I fully agree with you.
you're not going to
Man.
be a contrarian.
No,
Yeah.
no. I do. If there's one thing about it, why did it take them so long to give Redman a spot?
Branding is a funny thing,
Uh,
and you know, the Wu-Tang was such an encompassing thing that there were a few dalliances with MCs outside of the cipher. Like Method Man had a really extraordinary relationship with Biggie, especially considering that his relationship with the Clan was really, you know, it could be fraught. So I think that there were other times where people considered it and it just didn't happen. And you know, I'm glad that they did, right? And I think the timing was okay. I think that what Wu-Tang represents is worth enough to have a bit of a deliberation process before they make alterations to that.
That is a very, very valid point, man. Because I think there's a line by Eminem I love where he's like, I can't remember exactly. I'm kind of paraphrasing it, but he's like, Pac and Biggie are dead, and you're not the Wu. So who died and made you God, right?
Right.
And
Right.
I'm like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty accurate. Like if you're gonna sit there and really get on that level, and yeah, let's do the Wu because Pac and Biggie unfortunately passed, which
Mhm.
I ain't. Yeah, man, I want to read this comic, Quinn. That's all. Like, you got my brain gestated on that now. Where I'm like a hip hop like say that one more time. It was a mouthful. Take a breath first.
Yes. Post-apocalyptic hip hop high fantasy graphic album, also a post-hauntology hip hop chronology. So it's a bit of two things because I think and shout out to Chuck Collins, the creator of the comic Bounce. So he turned me on to the concept of hauntology. And this will be me paraphrasing. It's if you've ever noticed that like there are kind of two kinds of future stories in major pop culture. One is the aforementioned fighting for gasoline and football shoulder pads, right? A la Mad Max and the like. Um, and then there is kind of the Isaac Asimov, Frank Herbert brand, where you know it's 10,000 years in the future, and somehow the only thing that remains of humanity is bureaucracy. And maybe there's a rock and roll badass kid that's gonna break all the rules and change everything, and he's the Messiah. And so that is an inability on some cultural level to envision a future that doesn't look like, you know, a leftover remnant of the world that we live in, right? And you know, the answers could be myriad as to why that keeps looping back. But for me, the story that we're doing, being rooted in hip hop, means that something to knock at the door of Tupac. It's the story of a rose growing in concrete, right? And it's about the blossoming of a new society after the fall of society.
That's
So,
And that's funny that you said that because I never thought about that because the only story that I can really think that doesn't represent one of those two story archetypes would, I mean, Star Trek, I guess, to a certain degree, but there's still a lot of bureaucracy there, in all
right.
sincerity. But I think it's the
And
one that probably has the least and is the most optimistic as far as, hey,
mhm,
we're not letting people die because they can't afford food situation.
right. Right. And if you haven't checked out the book Trekonomics, it's a good read. But like the idea of post scarcity and the idea like the saving grace of what Star Trek represents is the fact that and they explore this more in the TNG universe, the idea that reputation becomes the new currency. that instead of how much money can I amass for myself and kind of sit on the throne and you're the man at this point in time in history, a more valuable currency is what you and your family have contributed to society. That's what people traffic in. That's what's of value, right? Riker takes his relationship with his dad is kind of based on what their family legacy is about, right? And there are still struggles within that construct, but the drive to make people on the whole better, and the fact that you get credit for your contribution to that, is a better use for competitive spirit than how much can I make for myself. And I think that's the thing that makes the difference in what Star Trek is. And for me, that makes it harder to say, well, does that really fall under the kind of hauntology that is in most futurist content? And it's funny because I've always raised my boys off the understanding that I've always told them that Star Wars is the past, or it represents where we are right now, right? And Star Trek represents where we're trying to get, right? They both look futuristic, but the first words in Star Wars are a long time ago. Star Trek is literally the future. It's chronologically in the future.
That would be
Star
nice.
Wars is allegorically in the past.
Yeah, that'd be nice because I always say, like, and I've had this conversation just out and about talking to people, probably scaring some normies if I'm going to be real honest. Where I'm like, you know, if I because I got a 6-year-old son, and I'm like, I don't want, I like, there are two paths I feel like we could head on right now in the ultimate. Like, we could really end up in Star Wars, or we could really end up in Star Trek. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
I don't want a war. I want a trek because it seems so much more nicer and pleasant. You know, like let's just trek along. Let's not blow. Let's not try to figure out how to make a lightsaber and then accidentally cut our son in half. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Right. Well, and that's the other thing, right? Like, it's like to trek along also is, you know, because I know that there is a subsect of you know, Star Trek fans that feel like everything that happened in the Paramount era is new Trek and that it's too woke or something. However, I'm old enough to remember when TNG was new Trek, and then Deep Space Nine was new Trek, and then Enterprise was new Trek. So I've seen this show before, but the thing that no matter how much they try to pine for a particular moment in Earth history to justify bigotry, you can't get on a starship in the USS in the Federation, however they're configuring that, if you have some bigotry or ism. When you're on the turbo lift and it's you, a woman, a black gay guy, and a fish person, right? There's no room for you to have your bigotry. Are these people best at what they do? And it turns out that the fish guy is the absolute best at replacing couplers on a falling elevator. All right? And if you get to worrying about how he and his husband fertilize the eggs in their private quarters, then you have got your priorities backwards, bucko. You're thinking about the wrong thing. And so that was literally Star Trek is something that my mom so if we're keeping count out there in the audience, Batman with my grandma, Superman with my grandpa, Star Trek the original series with my mother. So I grew up watching that with her, and that was something that I passed on to watching with my kids, even to the point where my son and I are in the middle of an active rewatch of Deep Space Nine. And that's actually, we're working on a project together based on Cisco and his son Jake's relationship in Deep Space Nine, mixed with the movie Big Fish. Again, I'm an insane person.
all I know is, man, you really made me feel like I need to watch Deep Space Nine. That was, don't ask me why. I loved that show. I mean, but I'm talking about when it was originally on the air in what, 96, 97? Okay.
Around then.
I can't believe I remember that closely, to be real honest. But I love that show, and I've not gone back to rewatching it. It's one of those things. Like I said, how old's your boy?
My boy is 24. Yeah,
Okay.
24.
All right. It's like I said,
Yep.
my boy's 6. And which is how old are you?
I'm 49.
Yeah,
I just
you
drink
can.
the tears of disappointed children to stay young.
I look. I'm 42 with a 6-year-old. Is all I'll say. All right. You know what I
It's
mean?
good. That's fine.
It's a. I
That's
don't
fine.
know. I love him to death, man, and I'll do everything I can. But I'm slowly kind of getting him into things. Like I've started him off, and this was based on a conversation that I had on this phone or on the quest with Eric. I got Bone for him, and I've been
Oh,
reading that.
nice.
I
Mhm.
And look, man, he's been absolutely loving it to the point where at one point we were going back to bed and we were on book 9. He's like, "Daddy, I wish I could read." And I was like, "All right, it's working." And then I'm playing
Mhm.
Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3
Nice.
because I plan to bring in Ultimate Spider-Man next, right?
Mhm.
To
Mhm.
worm into that.
Shout out to Bags.
Yeah. Shout out to Bags, man. You can check him out on the Pan-Con as well as on a quest just a little bit before that. And that was look, if y'all are enjoying the show, go check out the Pan-Con. That was such a phenomenal conversation with 6 great creators that it was just phenomenal. There's so much information there. And it's out now. I promise you that. It's not out now, but it's out now, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? That makes sense.
Yes.
You know what I
Yes.
mean? Yeah. You just the host is
Time is
crazy.
a flat circle, man.
Time is a pain in my ass. All right.
Well,
But
time is
That's
on my side.
that's what time is, dude. I swear on my life. I need a 36-hour day or the powers of Jamie Madrox. And I'm not talking Juggalo here, just to be clear. I'm talking X-Men. Well,
Yes.
X Factor, technically. But,
Yes.
whatever. I'm digressing and getting way too tired. And I lost my point that was...
You were
Oh,
reading to your
no.
boy.
Yeah. No. See, I got it back. Sorry, y'all. It's been a long day. Right. So with that and with what I just told you and with what you've told me as far as what you got your son into respectively, what would you suggest for a parent to get them to where their son or daughter was watching stories and reading stories as opposed to consuming TikToks and reels and shorts?
You, as the parent, dominate the world and the culture of your child. How you spend your time with that new human being is how you set the path that new human being will walk on. My son was listening to music inside his mother's stomach. And he has been a lifelong musician. He's signed to a label. He's playing music. He's done halftime for the Grizzlies. Heck, the boys designed clothes for official NBA Grizzlies merch. So he's got the drawing touch too, and that is about immersion. It's about exposing your passions to the people who mean the most to you, and I count my children amongst those people. Um, and also appreciating what they find interesting. Yeah, you want to guide. Yeah, you want to, keep guardrails, as you see fit or appropriate, but you're in dialogue. This is a living being, right? And you want to let them know that you hear them. Uh, you'd be surprised at how often letting your kid be a part of that exploration takes you to something new, introduces you to something else. Um, it is part of the reason why I'm a bit more reserved in my opinion of new rap, right? New content, new materials. My son put me on the I don't know if it's Hunter x Hunter or Hunter x Hunter because I sit down and kind of watch with him as opposed to ask for the proper pronunciation. But yeah, like that journey pays dividends as he is now older than 6, right? When he was 6, I think the first time I allowed him to like stay up really late was the first time that we sat and watched all 6 Star Wars together, right? I raised those boys on the ethos of Star Trek, but my namesake, his nickname is Boba Fett, and he's my unaltered clone, right? With no growth acceleration or no mental acumen to make them more docile. So like, you find those things with your kids. Like I have my own collection. My son's collecting his own books. He came with me to Comic-Con, not this past year because he had a gig that he had to do this year. But he came with me last year, and he was like my camera person. So he was filming me talking to Bill Sienkiewicz, and we went to the Alex Ross booth to look at his stuff. And he recently, today, like literally hours before I got on this podcast with you, he had the collected edition of Kingdom Come. And just watching him geek out, because I was like, yeah, here are the Fat Albert kids. Oh yeah, the Beatles are playing in this club. Oh yeah, here are just showing him the cameos. And like even with him looking at the cover, I flipped it upside down so that he could see Captain Marvel and the opposing team in the reflection of the table. And he lost it, right? Like he's still in this space of discovery. And I enjoy that in my relationship with him. Like as they grow, it's gonna come back. So yeah, just if you immerse them into what you're doing, kids pay attention to what you do, not what you say, not what you try to sell them on. So if you're passionate about stories, if you're passionate about reading, if you have a respect for art in your household or as a part of your ethos, then the kids are going to follow suit.
That's phenomenal advice, man. It's funny. Like I got because right over here is my closet. I'm not gonna get into it, but I need to get book 1 and book 9 of Bone, but I got the rest of them for Christmas. You know what I mean? Like I got book 2 through 8. I'm trying to one of single
Nice.
Yeah. So I just gotta find 1 and 9. Or I might just give him like 2 through 8 and be like, now we got to hunt for 1 through 9. So he gets that vibe of like actually trying to hunt something down too, which I think is a cool aspect. But then I was watching Star Wars with him.
And
I started at episode 1. I don't know that I should have. I'm starting to think I should have watched them in the order that they came out, as opposed to the order that they are sequentially. Because it's episode 2 where Anakin kind of cuckoo, and it's understandable, they kill his mom, whatever, who would lose it a little. Oh, that hit my 6-year-old a little hard. And it might be with current life events too, but I think there's that like that moment, and now he's just he's like, I never want to watch that part again, Daddy.
So I tell you what you can do that can really help. You've gotten to 2 so far, correct?
Yeah.
It's time to go to the Clone Wars.
Oh, the cartoon.
Take the wheel, turn into it. And I mean, you can do the Genndy Tartakovsky, right? But I would suggest the actual series, because what that does is it takes a lot of the pressure off of the kind of main charactering of Anakin, and it becomes about the clones, right? And there are a lot of life lessons in there. Yoda does a lot of teaching in there. Obi-Wan does a lot of teaching. Anakin actually gets a path, at least. He doesn't take it. He gets a path to healing. He gets his own Padawan. He starts his own personal relationships. He begins to grow as an individual, and the push and pull of what he wants in his personal life and the war that he's been thrust into since he was a child, right? Those things give a clearer demarcation, right? Because if you just jump to 3, then it's kind of like, from my point of view, the Jedi are evil. Well, then you are lost. And that kind of is an acceleration that does not, it betrays what actually happened to Anakin, who was a child soldier that was manipulated, who was given charge of another child soldier, right? Who he developed a family in Obi-Wan and in Ahsoka, and then was asked to sacrifice them because of what is admittedly the Jedi's bad decision to align itself with the Republic as an act of convenience. Here is where order lies in the galaxy as it exists. So we're just gonna fall in line with them instead of using our instincts, or God forbid, doing what Qui-Gon does, right? And it balances out what and I love that there was a behind the scenes thing where the creators were talking about it, and his name is escaping me, but the showrunner of Clone Wars, he was talking about how the fight in Duel of the Fates with Qui-Gon Jinn and Darth Maul. The Duel of the Fates is about the fate of Anakin Skywalker. Anakin needs a father figure. He doesn't need a big brother. He needs Qui-Gon. He doesn't need Obi-Wan. Qui-Gon would have raised him, and the rebellious spirit that Anakin has would have been girded in Qui-Gon's tradition of actually listening to the living force. Anakin's rebellious streak is not bad. It is simply misplaced. And those are very complex things for a 6-year-old child, but the diversion into the cartoon, right? It's an adventure series, and it softens the blow, and it gives a little bit of resolution to what happens with mom. All of those things are in there, and by the time you get to the turn, he can still be heartbroken, but he'll have matured some, right? Like that, to me, I think is the prescribed way to watch them, is in order, but with the Clone Wars, all 5 seasons in there. Then you can get to episode 3, and then you can watch the redemption arc.
Oh, fine. I've never watched it. I kind of always wanted to. And the only time, half the time, or more than half the time, if I'm going to be frank, I got time to do anything besides, make sure life is working is when I'm having time with my son. So I guess thanks, man.
Boom.
You actually gave me a moment where I'm going to be able to watch the Clone Wars. Not that I also made the mistake of showing him the first episode of Pokemon.
That I can't help you with, but well, he'll eventually want to catch them all, right? I think
He
that's the plot.
already does. Are you serious? Quinn, if I showed you his bed right now, all right, in a year's time, there's nothing but Pokemon in there. And his favorite Pokemon has changed, I don't know how many times. Because do you know how many Pokemon there are nowadays?
I shudder to think.
It's over 1,000.
Oh, that's quite a lot.
Yeah, it's over 1,000. It's and then he shows me one like Lycanroc, right? That's one of the Pokemon.
Why not?
And I'm like, okay, it's got 3 forms. And it's kind of like, it's a rock type, but lichen. So it's got a little bit of werewolf in it. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. All right. Yeah. So it goes back to the point of, your kid showing you something, and even at 6, he still does that to me, man. And I think that's phenomenal to realize that you can learn from anybody. I think it's important for people to remember that every person you meet has something to teach you. It doesn't mean that they meant to teach you that, right?
Yep.
They could.
Yep.
That could they could be out to ruin you, but still teach you something that you needed to learn. And I think that's important. I really, really do, man. But I want to ask you one more question. I feel like I've asked you before, because I've asked quite a few people, but I can't quite remember. But when you were starting all this out and you had to balance your family, your life, getting it to where all the entertainment, everything was working, and making sure bills were paid, how'd you do that?
So, I'm fortunate, right? Like I'm fortunate in that I married my high school sweetheart, and when I dated my wife in high school, I had put together a collective called the Comic Book Collection, Comic Book Collective, and it was me and a couple of other artists and a writer or two. And the first gift that my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, got me when we were serious was 500 cards for my company, right? With my separate phone number that I had living at home with my parents on there. She'd always been a support to me. And so I'd become a tattoo artist later in life. I had my son, and I was working there to make ends meet. And I was frustrated, though. I wasn't really happy. And my wife, very much in the spirit of Stan's wife, June, pulled me to the side and was like, well, hey, like, if you're gonna stop this thing, or you don't like this kind of art, why don't you do what you were doing when we were in high school? And so, the way that I made it work was I had the support of my family. my wife had my back. The boys were in it from the beginning. Like my youngest, I think still to this day on his little LinkedIn page, he has table management for Legends Press, right? As part of the jobs that he had in the beginning. My son, who I refer to as Boba Fett, does so much of the music, like the theme song that we have for Project Wildfire, music that we make for various stuff on the sites and pages. He does all of that. My oldest does seamstress. I don't know what the male equivalent of that, but he does like sewing and fashion and stuff. He's helped make cosplay elements. So the entire family is in for a penny, in for a pound with what we do, and that kind of support is how we get things done. But it's in the ethos of who we are. Like my wife is a scholar and an educator, but she also writes stuff with me. She and I have 11 issues of a comic book series that we do in the world of education for reproductive justice and sexual education. So a comic book series that my wife writes and that I draw. And at this point, she last year had her own panel at San Diego Comic-Con, and then I had my own panel. So she's got her own set of these now from San Diego. So we're all in it together, and that is the beauty of what I get to do, and I'm thankful every day that I have their support. But like it was always me reading comics to the boys and giving them books and introducing them to artists. It was always like that. So that's how you do it, right? Like you if you're dedicated to the thing, man, go to your people and ask them for your support, right? Tell them to give you 6 months, tell them to give you a year, right? Whoever's watching or listening to this and thinking about getting into it, and give it your all, right? And you'll be surprised at the results that you can get sometimes. Like the things that we've built here, I'm not sure that I would have had the confidence to do it by myself. So if it weren't for like my wife is my best friend, like if it weren't for my friends and if it weren't for my boys, then I wouldn't have been able to do half of the stuff that I do, right? Like so. Yeah, leaning into your support system is the best way. And if you ask for the time to do something, try to make good on it. Try your best to make good on it.
That is phenomenal advice, Quinn. And honestly, makes me feel like I'm at least doing a couple things right over here in and the questionnaire.
Oh yeah, you're doing fine, man.
Right. And for everyone out there, look, if you've enjoyed this quest, click the links, man. Check out Quinn's work, right? There's phenomenal stuff there, right? Because he sent me the link because I don't remember either that or I grabbed it from his quest on season 2.
Yes.
I don't know. It got there somehow. We make this magic work
you can go to
over here.
legendspresscomics.com and pick up Project Wildfire. You can see the other books and projects that we have. I have a battle-scarred teddy bear story called War Bear coming down the pike. I'm helping to bring some stories from my other friends to life. So we have stuff like Star Sage. We have Legend of the Black Fist. We have a bunch of stuff. So you can go to legendspresscomics.com and take a look at that. I'm also in the newest seasons of Noir is the New Black, which is from Fair Square Comics. I'm working on a book with Greg Burnham called Little Rock Files. I just finished some pages on a new installment of that. The last Kickstarter is already out. You can check the links to Fair Square Comics. I'm also working with Hannibal Taboo on a lot of his Sundering stuff. I'm also working with Rexco Comics on a project that is also inside that Afrofutures anthology. that I'll be able to talk more about probably on the next time I'm on the quest. But I am very, very excited about that particular project. So yeah. And I sent him the link, so you'll probably be able to click them or find them on a screen somewhere. They're around.
They're right below in the description, regardless of like wherever you're listening to the show. But man, I don't, you know, Quinn, I'll be real honest. I kind of wish I wasn't as tired as I was, and I didn't have to do what I had to do in the morning right now, because like a teddy bear injured. Wait, what? Like, no, I don't even want to get into it. I need to sleep. I ain't even finished my chimichanga, and I am the Wade Wilson of hip hop. And you hear me? I need this in my life. It was so properly prepared, but frankly, now it needs warmed up, right? But that's besides the point, right? So for everyone out there, look, I just want you all to do 3 more things. 1, give it that thumbs up. Or don't, whatever. But besides that, always get your comic on. Have a good night, y'all.
Thanks so much for hopping on board and listening to the questionnaire.
Keep a listen out to these crazy guys.
The questionnaire.
I missed something.
Like and subscribe.
You're drunk. Go home.
Thanks for checking out the questionnaire.
Don't have a good day. Have a great day.